Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Shalina Monet. Welcome to Lena Gang. And today is going to be a story time. So if you're interested, stay tuned. Okay guys, so this is going to be a little bit different. I don't know, I see a lot of videos on YouTube about women and their worst dating stories and experience, whether it's online dating or in-person dating. And I mean, no shade to that because I have my own video, which I will post up above if you would like to check that out. But I wanted to, I don't know, I feel like, you hear a whole bunch of a lot of negative things about it. You hardly that much hear about the good stuff. The facts about dating online is that it is like a new way or new wave or whatever you want to call it, how people meet each other. Especially during COVID, because a lot of people are not going out as much as they used to, or some are just scared straight and not going out at all. And I'm here to give you some great dating story and experiences. All these dates, I met these men online, so I will list what website, which app I met them on, and their names is all going to be based off of their city or state that they are from. Unfortunately, only one of those dates are from my city. Also, at the end of the video, I will talk more about, my opinions of everything. Like we're gonna just end it out as good as possible. Give you my opinions about it and how I really, thought about the dates. But I'll give like a quick little something insert on those dates as well after each story. I will be placing some timestamps down below. These dates, I have 4 stories to tell you guys. And the last story is going to be the best one. So stay tuned for that. Again, the timestamps are below if you want to skip through some of these stories and get straight to the end, because I'm also going to be talking about Stefco, which I love her, girl. Hey girl, I love you. So I love her story time. So let's start. Okay, so for the first story, we're going to call him Mr. North Carolina. Okay, because that's where he's from. So I actually met him on Bumble. I had to think about it for a minute. So I met Mr. North Carolina on Bumble. Okay, and if you're not familiar with Bumble, usually, it was created by women for women, I guess, like to take control of your dating destiny and all that stuff. So basically, if the guy swipes on you and you swipe on him, you have to send him a message, and then he has 24 hours to respond. If he does not respond within 24 hours, he's gone. He's out. He's out. Okay, that's it. Also you have 24 hours. I believe you have 24 hours to respond as well. I haven't done it in a while, but yeah, I think you have 24 hours to send the first message. And if that 24 hours runs out, that guy is gone. Or sometimes those men will, I think on their end, they can like put in for more time. So they can say like,
oh no, there's like 3 minutes left to share this message. I really want to talk to her. Maybe she just needs more time.
So he can put in for like an extra 24 hours. That gives you 2 days to send him a message so he can respond. Yeah. So anyway, I sent him a message and literally he had like less than 24 hours to respond to the message, but he eventually did. He got around to it and he even apologized. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't send the message, but I got it and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, okay, whatever. So we got off of that platform and we just started talking and just texting a lot. We also FaceTimed a ton. So it's crazy. Like, we FaceTimed a lot. Like, it was some months before we actually got to see each other. But during that time, he would FaceTime me. So he seen me with makeup. He saw me without makeup. I'm like, okay, you can't get no realer than that. He's seen my hair made up. He's seen my hair, natural hair. So, I was like, oh, whatever. Now it's like, whatever. If you're interested, you still want to see me, then you want to see me. You've seen the real me in every form, right? So one day in the summertime, We got to meet up and it was very random. But I will say this, so little background, I guess, on him and how it led up to the date. So he used to play professional football in the NFL, and then he no longer does that. And now he is a football coach, well, a college football coach. And was working in my city on contract. So he wasn't gonna be here for a long time, but we just wanted to see each other. So I already knew, like, if we did anything, it wasn't gonna be anything permanent, because this man went from city to state to state to state to city to city to state to state back to North Carolina. Okay, so anyway, one day I was just out shopping, running some errands. So I wasn't like all like super done up and cute, you know, like how I am right now. But so he had called me and was like, hey, there's this concert going on, and I wasn't thinking about going, but I really want to go, and I want to know if you come with me, you know, we can meet up or whatever. And it just so happens in my city, so I live in Cleveland, and he was like, well, in the city of Cleveland, every summer, usually, there's free concerts throughout the different parks, like really big parks in the city. And so it was this reggaeton concert that was in the city at this Euclid Beach Park, to be more exact. And I'm like, I'm out shopping, but I said, I'll go. But I'm letting you know now, I'm not dressed all cute or whatever. I'm dressed regular, like, because I'm out running errands, blase blase. He's like, I don't care, I just want to see you. And I'm like, okay, whatever, okay, I'm gonna go. So I took a picture of my outfit. It was just like I was like shopping for clothes. I wasn't about to shop for like new clothes just for this one day. That's not me. But I was shopping. I took a picture of my outfit, sent it to my bestie, hey bestie, and said like, is this okay? Because I'm about to go meet with this guy, and I don't know if I look crazy. And she was like, nah girl, you look good. And you did some of your makeup too, so you good. I didn't look like this, but I did like some really simple basic stuff. So I used my GPS because I don't know where I'm going, and I'm going to the address that he sent to me. Turns out there was like nothing there. It was desolate. So I pulled over and had to look up the event, you know, Euclid Beach reggae concert. And it was a completely different location than where he said. It wasn't like super far, but it was definitely a different location. So I plugged that in my GPS, went to the location. The place was packed. So I couldn't even park in the parking lot, not even I parked across the street and then down the street from that just to get to the event. So once I got there, I moseyed my way up to the front, and I was up there dancing. He was not there yet, and for some reason, I was not even thinking like, Shalina, he gave you the wrong address. He probably has the wrong information too. But then another idea popped in my head. Oh, he's a man, and the men, you know, he probably knows where he's going, but gave me the wrong address. That's what overruled everything. So I didn't even think like, oh, give him the right address. No, I didn't do that at all. So he later called me and he's like, hey, where you at? I don't see nothing out here. So I gave him the information, and he even made a comment like, how come you didn't give me the right information when you got there? You knew it was wrong. And I told him why. And he was like, this is your city, not mine. And I'm like, I didn't even know where this was, so leave me alone. So anyway, he eventually shows up. Granted, this guy is 6'2", okay, 6'2". And it's funny because when I saw him coming, it was like all these other shorter people, you know, like my height, I'm a 5'4". But these shorter people, and then you see this like super tall guy walking, and so he spots me, and I'm like, hey. And it was close for the concert to even being over. And he was like, oh man, like I really wanted to like, you know, blase blase, but he was like, you know, well, we're still here together, so whatever, you know. They're like, yes, right, we made it. We still made it. So anyway, went to Euclid Beach, like I said before. And we went walking on the pier. And as we're walking on the pier, he has this thing of always wanting to, well, no, he was always just a gentleman. So he like wanted me to cuff my arm in his arm. Does that make sense? Cuffed my arm in his arm and we walked to the pier. Now it was a big wooden pier or whatever, out towards the water. There was like this older couple. The guy was fishing and he had his like radio or boombox or whatever, blasting some 70s jams. It was good. And this guy, Mr. North Carolina, he was an old soul anyway, so he loved the music, and you know, he was just like, oh yeah. So while he was fixing the chairs up for us so we could sit down, because there were some like bright colored lawn chairs. I don't know, I just stood at the pier. And if I still have the video, I'm going to insert it. So it was just nice water and the rocks, like the water hitting the rocks, and it was just so peaceful. It was like he wasn't even saying anything because he was messing with the chairs, but it was just so peaceful and serene, and I just really loved it. Then we sat down and we just talked. He made fun of me, I made fun of him, we cracked jokes. But his type of joking, I remember, you know, there's different types of jokes, you know, people tells. You know, a joke that makes you say, get out of here, you're not really funny, but, you know, I'm going to still acknowledge it. I don't want to leave you hanging. I don't want crickets, you know, make you feel bad, lower your self-esteem, all that stuff. Then there's like, you know, those really good laughs. You know, it comes from your guts, comes from your stomach, just comes from there. And, you know, that's that genuine laugh. You funny for real. You should be a comedian. And then there's those, you are so corny. Like your jokes are so corny, or so corny, and it's just funny. So it just makes you laugh. He was on the corny side. So he was corny, but it made me laugh. So yeah. So anyway, it was getting late. It was probably like around 8:30, 9 o'clock. And again, this is in the summertime. And he's like, okay, well, I gotta, you know, go to work tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, I gotta go to work tomorrow or whatever. So we were getting ready to leave the pier, the park. And I don't know how it happened, but he was like, you wanna race? And I'm like, what you mean I wanna race? And you know, I have my Nike Air Prestos on. Okay, I love those. Those are my favorite tennis shoes to date, Nike Air Prestos. If you haven't tried them, go try them. Okay, but anyway, I had Nike Air Prestos, I had sweatpants on, and I had a crop top on. So I wasn't really like feet wise, I was dressed for this race. But the shirt situation, I was not dressed for. But I was like, you know what? I don't care. I was really like at a point of just living in the moment. Get out of your own way. Don't be such a stickler or a stiffler all the time. Just live. Just be in the moment and say yes. And I did. I said, yes, let's do this. I said, I'll smoke you. And then he went on about how he used to be run track in high school and college. And he's like, and you know, I played football, so I had to run all the time. I'm like, I don't care about all of that. Keep that for your mama. Let's do this. So he's like, all right. So he's counting down. He's like, you can stand up a little bit ahead of me, you know, because you're short or whatever. Okay. So I scoot up a little bit. He's going down. 3, 2, 1, go. And we run from the point of where we were, from the end of the pier, all the way to the end of the parking lot. And I won. I won the race. Okay. And I was all excited and I was boasting, and then he had to shut me down, I guess, because I was talking too much. So he was like, I let you win. He was like, look at my legs. I'm taller than you. Look at my arms. Like, ain't no way in the world you would have beat me. He was like, I let you beat me because I was being a gentleman. And I'm like, I don't want to hear them lies. Keep it to yourself. I don't want to hear any of that. So anyway, like I said, it's dark, and he's like, where did you park? And I told him I'm down the street there. And he was, you know, again, dark, young lady by herself. So he offered, his car was just across the street. So he was like, how about this? We'll walk across the street to my car and then I'll drive you to yours so you don't have to walk so far and by yourself at that, you know? And I'm like, well, thank you. Okay. So we run across the street. I get over on the passenger side and he's over there with me. He opens the door and he's like, give me a minute. Let me clean it off. It's just so junky. So yeah, he had a whole bunch of junk on the passenger seat. And then I seen him wipe the seat off. So I don't know, he had some food crumbs on it. And then he just stood on the other side of the door where the handle was and said, you know, you can sit down now. I was like, thank you. So I sat down and he shut the door. He ran over to his side, got in, and we started driving. He did turn on the radio. Well, he had a CD in there and it was Chance the Rapper. And I've heard of Chance the Rapper, but I had never really listened to his music until that day. And it was because of that day why I still listen to Chance the Rapper. So Chance, thank Mr. North Carolina for that. But you know, Mr. North Carolina was also like, you know, if you want to know about me, this album right here, this is my life. This is it. This is me. And I'm like, there's that corniness again. But I was like, okay, this is you. This is you. Okay. So yeah, he was like, this album, if you want to know anything about me, this is me right here. I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. So he drives me down to my car and I'm getting ready to get out. And I have this thing where sometimes I'll just burst into Spanish, like talking Spanish. Like I don't speak fluent Spanish, but like I don't want to forget the little bit of stuff I know. So I didn't even say anything super fancy. I just said, gracias, señor. You know, gracias, señor. And he says, he looks me dead in the eyes. And he says, de nada. I don't know. Because I do that and people don't know what I'm saying anyway. So I was just surprised for him to just say, de nada. So I'm like, okay. And then I get out and he gets out of his side and peck on the cheek. I'm off on my way. So yeah, that was date number 1, Mr. North Carolina. Okay, so now date number 2, uno. So we're gonna call him Mr. Cleveland. Yes, a date from my city. So I met Mr. Cleveland from Tinder. Okay, so yeah, I met Mr. Cleveland on Tinder, and we start talking on there and got off the app, started texting or whatever, and talking on the phone. I remember he had great conversation. We'd be on the phones for hours, and even he'd be like, wait a minute, like how long have you been talking? I'm like, I gotta go. Like, I gotta cook dinner. I got stuff to do. You can't be taking up all my day. I will talk to you tomorrow. But anyway, he was so sweet, though. He was very sweet. So, anyways, first dates. Now, by this time I, was going on a date with Mr. Cleveland, and not that kind of Mr. Cleveland.
My name is Cleveland Brown, and I am proud to be.
But I hadn't lived in Cleveland that long. I mean, I grew up in the city, but then my mom moved us out. So I haven't been in years living in the city, so I don't know where everything is. Mr. Cleveland wanted to meet downtown, and he is a chef, and he was a chef during that time. He did it as well, or, went on a date or whatever. And he was like, where you want to go? I said, how about you pick? So I let him pick. He picked this really nice restaurant downtown Cleveland, which is like half restaurant, half like comedy show spot or whatever. Like it was like 2 places in one. So I met him downtown and we meet up and we walk the rest of the way to the restaurant because I told him where I was parked, and so he met me where I was parked at so we could walk up so I wouldn't get lost. So he like this place that he picked, he used to work there, and it just so happens a lot of the people that he used to work with during that period of time were still there. So when we got there, the guy, you know, dabbed him up at the door and said, okay, I got you, and walked us to our seat. And the hostess, he was very nice. He pulled open my chair and he was just talking to Mr. Cleveland. Next thing, I guess word must have got through there really fast, because next thing I know, the head chef, he comes out talking to Mr. Cleveland and they dabbing it up. You know, he's got his whole, like, he was there working. He wasn't there, like, the chef was not there visiting. He was there working, and he had his whole outfit on with the hat, everything. So anyway, he, you know, said, hey, Mr. Cleveland, and blah, blah, blah. And he looked at me and was like, you know, hey, how you doing? What's your name? Yada, yada, yada. And then he said, oh, so when are you guys getting married? I was silent. I didn't say anything. I felt like it wasn't my place to say anything because he was talking to him anyway. And so I looked at him and he looked at me. You know, Mr. Cleveland looked at me and I looked at him. And he just said, it's our first date. And he was like, oh, okay, well, y'all a cute couple. I hope it works out, you know. And he was like, yeah, I hope so too, you know. So then they continued talking. He was like, yeah. I'm thinking about, you know, we're probably gonna get like the salmon or whatever. And Mr. Cleveland was like, who's back there in the kitchen cooking tonight? So the chef told him all the people that's cooking back there, and he was like, He's like, I'm gonna let you know right now, she and I both are gonna be ordering the salmon and whatever other side was on there. He was like, I want you to cook our salmon for us, okay? He's like, I got you, man, I got you. He's like, you know my name won't come through. I'm gonna know if you did cook it. He's like, no, I got you, man, you know I got you. And so he's like, okay, man, all right. And so the chef leaves. And I'm just sitting there just smiling, just cheesing. And he's like, why'd you over there cheesing like that? And I'm like, I said, I feel like I'm VIP. Like I said that. I didn't care how it came out or anything like that. I said I felt like I was VIP. And he was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, because everybody here at the restaurant knows you. I said, if I came in here by myself, I wouldn't have been treated like that. The chef wouldn't have came out here to talk to me. That's number one. Number two, I couldn't pick who's gonna cook my food. I'm like, you wanted him to cook the food. And so Mr. Cleveland went on and said, well, such and such is not that great of a cook. I don't think so. Such and such, they're new, so I don't know how they cook. I'm not taking no chances on my food. I gotta pay for it. And he's the best. He's like, even when I used to cook here, I would have him cook some stuff for me because I knew he was such a great cook. And I'm like, exactly. Like, who else has that privilege? That's a privilege. Like, he was like, oh, well, I didn't think about it like that. He's like, I guess so, yeah. I said, yeah. You roll with me, you VIP. And I'm like, okay, I didn't say it, ain't too late now. So we ordered our food. You know, we're waiting on it. We're still talking to each other. Then comes the owner's daughter. So the owner of the restaurant is in there. Like the owner, we saw the owner, but he didn't see us, so he didn't come to our table. But the owner's daughter was doing rounds, I guess, and she saw us and she remembered him and they started talking. She introduced herself to me. She's really, really, really nice. Very down to earth, very sweet. Our waiter was very polite. They didn't come to the table a million trillion times to ask us about stuff. It was really good. So we ended up having appetizer. We had a meal. And then I wanted a dessert. And like he wanted a dessert, but we didn't want our own dessert because we were like we're kind of full. We might not eat it. So it's like, let's share one dessert. Let's pick one thing. If we don't eat it, we just don't finish it. That's fine, you know? And I remember we ended up sharing a cherry cheesecake. One slice of cherry cheesecake. I remember that. So, and we did not finish it. Next thing, the waiter comes with the bill. And Mr. Cleveland, he's pulling out his wallet and he was like, that waiter was really cool. He's like, I'm gonna give him a really good tip or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, he did really good, you know. He knew what he was doing. He was talking about blase. So, he gives him So the waiter gives Mr. Cleveland the tip. Gives him the bill. And then Mr. Cleveland, next thing I know, I see him with his hand in his face. And he's just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And he just kept saying, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I'm like, what's wrong? Did they mess up the bill? Like, I don't comment on a bill because I'm not picking the bill up. But he looked so distraught. I had to ask him, like, what's wrong? Why are you like that? And he was like, those guys. He's like, I love those guys. And I'm like, what did they do? And he gave me the bill. He was acting like he was gonna explain it to me, but then he just handed me the bill. And I looked at it and it said $0. They wrote the bill off. The bill was almost $100. And the restaurant wrote it off. They wrote it off. His balance was 0. Zip. Zippity zip zip 0. Okay. And so I was like, wow. He's like, I love those guys, man. I was like, well, how are you going to tip the guy? Because he has nothing to like cash through the register. And so he pulled out some cash and he made it happen. But yeah, it was really cool. So we left out of the restaurant and he was like, oh, so, what do you want to do? He's like, well, you say you haven't been down here forever. I was like, yeah, I don't know where really anything is. We walked around downtown Cleveland. We were down, the whole date took 4 hours, 4.5 to 5 hours. I was with him for that day. Just walking around Cleveland. I was like a tourist, so I was taking pictures. Yes, I was corny, I don't care. I was really genuinely enjoying myself. So yeah, I was taking pictures and we were talking the entire time. And he, like I said, he could talk on the phone prior. So it was nothing for him to talk like that in front of me. So it was really cool. So we really enjoyed each other. We really did. We really did enjoy each other's time. And then from there, he walked me back to my truck. And it kind of got weird at that point. He, was saying goodbye and like, I really enjoyed myself. I'm so glad we finally got to meet. I'm so glad you enjoyed yourself. Like, he kept asking me, did you really have fun? Did you really have fun? Are you joshing me? You joshing? I'm like, no, like, I really have fun. Like, this is different for me. I have fun. And he's like, okay. He's like, I really have fun too. This is like really cool, chill, relaxed day. I'm like, yeah, I agree. And then he just stood there. And then I just stood there. Like, it was just quiet. It was nothing. He didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. It was just quiet. So it was kind of weird. And I just gave him a hug. Like, it's just quiet. I don't know. So I gave him a hug and I left, Later on, he did say that he was just standing there because he thought I was going to kiss him. But then he thought he should kiss me. So he was like having a battle in his mind about the whole thing about kissing. And I'm like, oh no, darling. You fine. We hugged. It was okay. But that is the end of story 2. Okay, guys. All right. So I know if you've gotten this far, you a G. I love you guys. I really do. Let's start with story number 3. Okay, story number 3. We're gonna call him Mr. New York. So and I met him on Bumble as well. And I'll let you know, with Bumble and Tinder, like, you can set the distance, like how far out people are that you meet. You can set it to worldwide, meaning you don't matter. You can meet somebody out of state, out of the country even, and it doesn't matter. Like, you want to meet who you want to meet, talk who you want to talk to, whatever. So anyway, he had actually visited Cleveland, but he didn't live here. He doesn't live here, but he still dinged, like we still dinged on each other. And again, like I said, we met on Bumble. Anyway, we start texting on there. Then, got off that platform and was texting, talking, FaceTiming. And, he's like, the next time I'm in Cleveland, we're going to go out. And it was during the wintertime. I specifically remember this. I call this my most spontaneous date. And I wouldn't consider myself like super spontaneous, but it's like when everything just sets up kind of right, you just have no choice. You have no choice. You have to just give in to the power of spontaneity and just go with it. Again, living in the moment. Just live in it. Just see where it goes. I mean, of course, within reason, but just see where it goes. So anyway, we were talking and he set up the whole date and he was like, I already knew he was like a male fashionista. Like he loved fashion. He owned one pair of tennis shoes. All his shoes were dress shoes. Like all his pictures on Bumble, he was dressed up like in turtlenecks, Rolex watches. He had these custom made eyeglasses, which they were super dope. He wore like suit jackets with like those cummerbund things. Like, yeah, he was very dressy. And he was just telling me, he was like, I'm just letting you know now when we meet up that day, if it's snowing, I'm wearing my fur coat. I'm like, fur coat? I'm like, wait. You have a fur coat? And he's like, yeah. Nah. He's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, okay. I said, bet. If you wear your fur coat, I'm going to wear mine too. He's like, okay. So the day comes for our date. And at this point, we had been talking long enough where, you know, you have that connection with somebody, like they can say a certain thing, but you really know what they really mean. Or when you talk to somebody and they're like, yeah, I really like that shirt. You know, you just know that they're lying. You know, we had talked long enough to know that. Like, I knew that at least. I don't know if you knew about that about me, but I knew and could read that about him. So anyway, I called him up and I'm like, hey, you know, it's cold down here and it's snowing. I'm like, are you gonna wear your fur coat tomorrow, you know? And he was like, well, it is cold outside. You know, he said it like that. So I knew he was gonna wear his fur coat. So anyway, we met up on the west side of Cleveland at this really nice wine bar. And I don't remember what I wore. I really don't remember what I wore. But I did wear my fur coat. And then I do remember partly what he wore. He did wear his fur coat. I remember it was all brown all the way down to like his ankles. He wore some like nice slacks with a sweater. I believe it was a turtleneck. And he wore his fancy glasses with his gold Rolex watch. Like, he didn't come to play. He did not come to play. But I do remember he said that he liked what I wore. He liked my style. He's like, I like your style. You got style. And I'm like, oh, really? I don't know. So we sat there. I remember we shared a pizza at the wine bar. He had a whiskey. I had water with lemon. And we were just talking. And I know one of my pet peeves is like people being on the phone, like when you're on a date with somebody, it's like you're not that interested, you know. So he was also a school professor, college professor, and one of his students had called during our date. So he's like, I'm sorry, this is one of my students. I'm like, oh, that's fine, you know. So he didn't get up and leave. He stayed right there and just said, hey, such and such, what's going on? Okay, yeah, so the assignment, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know, email me if you don't understand it, you know, better. But I'm, you know, not even in New York right now. Blah, 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 blah. He's like, oh, thank you for letting me take that, whatever. I'm like, oh, no, you're fine. So again, we started talking some more, and then he gets on his phone again, but like he's doing it like on the side. So like he's like doing all of this on the side of the counter while we're still talking to each other. So I'm like, okay, so you're not really into this. Okay, whatever. So, you know, so it's about time for us to get ready to go. And he was like, so what you got going on for the rest of the day? And I was like, not much, you know, whatever, you know, it's the weekend. And he was like, you want to go somewhere else? And I'm like, okay, like where? And he was like, let's go to this place called Zanzibar. Which is funny because Zanzibar, one of our many conversations we had, I told him that Zanzibar was one of my favorite restaurants. It's Black owned and it's sexy soul food. So I was like, yeah, we could go. And he was like, well, I made reservations. And I'm like, now how the heck you gonna make reservations? Like, when did you make reservations? He was like, you remember when we were talking and I was like messing with my phone? And I'm like, yeah, I saw you mess with your phone. And he was like, that's what I was doing. I was making reservations for us online. I'm like, oh, that's what you was doing? Ooh, okay, that's my bad. That's my bad. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go. Okay, so we're walking and we're talking some more. You know, he opens the door for me, walk out, and he kept telling me, stand on the inside, stand on the inside. And I'm like, what do you mean, stand on the inside? And so he took his hands and put them on my shoulders and moved me over. He was like, don't you know a man is supposed to stand on the outside, closest to the street, while walking on the sidewalk, while the lady is supposed to be on the inside? I was like, oh, you're gonna get hit by a car for me? He was like, well, I hope not. You know, I'm just doing the gentleman thing. So anyway, he walked me to my truck or no, I think I had a car during that time. Yeah, I had a car during that time. So anyway, he walked me to my car and we were driving, and it wasn't like he was ahead of me, but I wasn't following him. I knew how to get there anyway. And I got there before him and I'm like, hey, I'm here. Where you at? He's like, I'm almost there. He's like, just go in there and give them my name and they'll seat you and they'll, you know, take me to you when I get there. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I get there, I give them Mr. New York's name at the door and they sit me down, and he comes in like less than 5 minutes behind me. And he's like, hey. And I'm like, how did you get lost, dude? He's like, yeah, I'm from here. He's like, GPS had me going some wild way. I don't know, but I'm here now. So we ended up sharing another dish. I think we had chicken and waffles. I don't know. I remember it was chicken though. I know there was fried chicken involved. Okay, I'll say that. And we shared that. We didn't even finish all of that because we was like, oh, we want some dessert. So we ended up having some dessert and we shared that. And then I know when the dessert came out, the waiter was like, you know, hey, do you want me to bring out 2 plates or just leave just the one? And Mr. New York was just staring at him, which again, me being able to read him. And I'm like, looked at Mr. New York and I'm like, looked at the waiter like, because he was waiting on him to answer. He didn't even look at me. Like the waiter did not even look at me for an answer. And I said, yes, please bring out 2 plates, you know, with the dessert. So we shared the desserts and then we were getting ready to leave. And he was like, hey, so how do you feel about a nightcap? And what is your opinion? Number one, this is for the audience. What is your opinion and thoughts about a nightcap? Like, what does that mean to you? And he was like, no, like there's this restaurant called Fire and we could go check it out. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I told him, I'm like, well, I think you have to have a reservation to get into Fire. And he was like, well, the way that we're dressed, they'll give us a seat immediately. And I just looked at him like, okay. So the hostess at the counter just asked us, you know, do you have a reservation? And we proceeded, no, we don't. And she was like, oh, it's okay. She's like, we're cleaning off a table right now and that'll be yours. So of course he looked at me and the look was, I told you so. And I'm like, okay. So we were proceeding to our table. One of the guests complimented us on our fur coats. Because because I feel like we kind of look coordinated in some type of way because both of our furs were brown. But anyway, we got to the table and we didn't have any type of food, just drinks. He was a whiskey type of drinker and I don't really drink, but I wanted to try Cosmopolitan. Because I believe that's the drink that they drink in Sex and the City. And growing up, that was like one of my favorite shows to watch. And just like that, I hope they come for season 2. I love that show. So anyway, I was like, I always see this on the show in the martini glass. I just want to try it. Why not, you know? So they bring out my drink and it was disgusting. Ugh. I mean, I am like the type of person that, like I said, don't drink alcohol anyway. And I'm very particular about what I drink. There's particular drinks that I will drink for a certain reason. So this was just not part of the tasting palette that I'm accustomed to. So I was like, oh, this is disgusting, but at least I tried it. Oh, at least I tried it. So anyways, he's drinking his drink and he's explaining the philosophy of whiskey drink and cologne and perfume and oil-based and water-based and strength. And like, we were just having these conversations at the fire. And yeah, it was really nice. So after we were done there, you know, he walked me into my car and I gave him a hug and that was it. That was it. Mr. Spontaneous, Mr. New York. Okay guys, so you have made it to story number 4 and the final story. Cuatro, you've made it. Okay, so this story, we're calling him Mr. Chicago. Mr. Chicago. So I met Mr. Chicago on Tinder. Yeah, I met Mr. Chicago on Tinder. So yeah, I met Mr. Chicago on Tinder and we had been texting, but we weren't texting a lot. He was kind of like, his work situation was very similar to Mr. North Carolina. He was here on a very brief contract. And like he was getting ready to go type of brief contract. And I was like, oh dang, I wish I would got to at least meet before you leave, you know? And he was like, well, maybe we can. So he was explaining his schedule to me and I was explaining my schedule to him and we finally figured out a day and time. I was like, okay, great. And for some reason we did that, but like we were texting each other every day still, but it was more or less like, hey, what's up, how you doing? Hey, what's up, how you doing? Hey, what's up, how you doing? We weren't talking about each other. We weren't trying to get to know each other through the text. It was just that. I guess it was just to like keep abreast of the curiosity of if we want to still meet up. So anyway, I remember the day before we were supposed to meet, because we were meeting up on a Saturday. I remember he had texted me and he was like, are you nervous? He asked me that. And I told him, yeah. I mean, like a little bit, yeah. I'm like, I don't know, like I kind of get like a good vibe from this for some reason, but yeah, I'm nervous. I think I'm always kind of nervous on a first date. And I asked him, like, are you nervous? And he's like, yeah, I'm nervous. He's like, I'm kind of nervous, you know, but I think it'll be cool. I think we're gonna have fun, you know? And I'm like, okay. And I was trying to book a reservation for us downtown Cleveland, and the restaurant, so it so happened they don't accept reservations. So, you know, I was like, okay, so we'll have to see if we can, you know, even get in there. And I guess what else made me nervous is because it was kind of more like a blind date. Usually before I meet a guy, you know, we've either talked on the phone or exchanged pictures of each other to prove just that we are who we say we are, so we're not catfishing each other. Mr. Chicago and I, we did not speak on the phone. We did not exchange pictures. We didn't do anything but text. And we didn't text, like I said, super frequently. It was as if we saved everything just for the date. Literally, that's how I felt. Like everything was saved just for the date. So I meet Mr. Chicago actually at his job because of parking. And because I told him, I'm like, downtown parking is crazy. And during that weekend, they were having this big event downtown. Anyway, parking, I heard, was crazy, like $50, $60. I met him at his job and I had to pay for parking there, but he actually paid it for me. Because he's like, okay, here, I paid for the parking. But before that, like, I pulled up to his job and these like security people were outside, and I'm like, I'm waiting for my friend to come out, and he's coming out with my ticket for parking or whatever. And they're like, okay, you can park right there in the front till he comes. And I'm just like nervous. I'm like nervous because I'm like, what if he doesn't look at his picture? What if I'm gonna be catfished? What if he doesn't look at his picture? What if he's like this older guy? What if he's like this kid? Like, what if Mr. Chicago, like, I was texting him because he texted me, he's like, okay, I got the ticket, I'm headed out. And he's like, what car are you in? Or so anyway, he's coming, he's got a face mask on. I'm like, okay, check. He's not short. I know that sounds probably shallow to some people, but he wasn't short. He was taller than me, so I was happy about that. And then he came up to the truck. I rolled the window down. He took his face mask off. Oh my God, he looked like his picture. Yeah, he got a two for two. Jesus. Okay, so I was excited. I looked like me. I didn't have a face mask on at all, obviously, I was in my truck. But yeah, he came. He was like, here's the parking pass. He was like, oh, so great you made it, He's like, you look like your picture. I was like, yeah, you look like your picture. And he was like, you look very beautiful today. I just gotta say you look very beautiful. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. He's like, I love your smile. I'm like, oh, thank you. We proceeded to go to the parking garage. She was like, whatever. So we went to the parking garage. And once we park, I get out and we hug each other. Like, hey, we finally get to meet each other. And we got to catch the bus. So this is a trip. This is another adventure, another adventure. So we walk to the bus station. We walked to the bus station or whatever. And I'm just talking, like I'm comfortable. For some reason, I felt really comfortable with him. Even though I'd like I said, never met him. We never talked on the phone, but I was just very comfortable. His aura, his vibe was very inviting. I felt good being in the space with him. So while I'm just yammering on, I'm not paying attention, and I saw he was at the station, like, trying to pay for the bus pass. And he was like, oh, no. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I'll stop talking. He was like, no, keep talking. I'm just paying for our bus passes. I'm like, oh, okay. So I just keep on yammering on. And then after he got the bus passes, he was joining into the conversation as well, but he just kept making me smile. It was really nice. He was like a mixture of funny. He was a mixture of corny funny. He was a mixture of really deep belly funny. And he was also that kind of funny as well. He was all three. He was a combination. He had a good variety of funny in him. But yeah, he was really cool. So when the bus came, he stood to the side and let me get on first. And I felt like a big kid. I was excited. I know, like, it's a bus. Like, I've been on the bus before, but I hadn't been on the bus since I had my son. So it was a long time. And the buses have changed. Used to, like, I get on the bus and your bus to stop, like it's coming up, you would just pull the cord so that the bus driver knows to stop. Now they have like these buttons, these yellow like buttons you just push. And I was like, oh, wow, we get to push a button? And he was just looking at me like, you excited about pushing a button? I'm like, this is fun. This is like an adventure or whatever. He was like, yeah, I guess you could say so. He was telling me about how his job was, he was a chef. Well, he is a chef as well. And he was just telling me how his job sent him out to do this job here in Cleveland, and how he didn't rent a car. He's just been using the bus, but he's only been using it just to go downtown because he was working in a hotel, so he was eat, work, all in the same place. So you're like, I had no reason to really get a car or whatever. So yeah, we were on the bus, and then he dinged it. He dinged it when it was time. He's like, okay, it's about time for us to get off. I'm like, okay. So I get up, I stand up, and again he stands to the side and lets me get off the bus first, and then he proceeds behind me. And then we just start walking. We start walking to the restaurant while we're talking. And during that time, like I said, I was just yammering on. And he always made sure that he stood on the outside as I stood on the inside while walking on the sidewalk. And if you missed those stories in the beginning, I mentioned that's what a man is supposed to do. So anyway, we get to the restaurant, he opens up the door, we get inside, the guy's like, oh man, it's gonna be like an hour and a half wait time. And he was like, okay, that's fine, just put my name down, my number, and just call me and we'll come. He was like, okay. So we leave out, we start walking around the city, and he's like, show me your city. And I'm like, I'm the worst person to be showing you this because I don't know where everything is. But I'm like, it'll be cool because we kind of like explore things together. And he agreed, like, that would be really dope. So we were just walking, like, went to like Tower City is one place you could go to, and some other like places we went to, and just walking around. And by this time I was like, well, how long has it been? He was like, it's been about an hour and they didn't even call me yet. He's like, and I'm getting hungry. And he did have to work that day of our date. Like, he had to work started like 6 p.m. He started in the evening. And I'm like, yeah, you gotta go to work too. Let's just go to this place. So we ended up going to this place called Wahlberg Burgers. If y'all know Mark Wahlberg or whatever. Him and his brothers, was a family restaurant. So we ended up going there, and he was like, oh, I always wanted to go. We used to have one in Chicago, but it closed. And I was like, oh, I always wanted to go here too, but I never got to go. He's like, okay, cool. So we get to go somewhere we both want to go, and we never been able to experience it together. I'm like, yeah. So we went, and he pulled out my chair. That was some bonus points. He pulled out my chair, and I was like, oh, thank you, And the waiter, we had a waitress, she came to the table at least 3 to 4 times, and we didn't even look at the menu yet because we were just talking, which was good. He could talk too. So we figured out what we wanted, and then when she came back again, we were able to give her our menu items that we wanted to get for our meal. So she leaves, we go talking again, and we just talk about our futures. Talked about what we wanted, where we are in the space, that we are in currently. We were both looking at moving out of the locations that we're in, but obviously they were not the same. He was very adamant about where he was in his life and what he wanted. So he was eating his sandwich savagely. And I remember I made a remark about the face mask, because everywhere you gotta wear a face mask. I had said, I hate this stupid face mask. I remember distinctly. I said, I hate this stupid face mask. It makes my face all red. I feel like my face is all red right now. And he was like, oh yeah, I was making you blush. I'm like, there go that corny again. But I liked it. I really did. I really liked it. Let's go to the next bus stop. And he was like, okay. But I told him, can you hold my food? Because I had leftovers. I couldn't eat all of my food at the restaurant. And I was like, can you hold my food? I'm going to zip up my coat because it's cold. And he was like, okay. He's like, okay, yeah. So I zip up my coat. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And then I'll take my food back. He's like, it's okay. I'll hold it. Now, who am I to argue with a man who wants to help me? Who am I? So I let him hold my food. And then our bus stops downtown. It's like on kind of a high ledge. It's not super high. Like you can just jump down and be okay. But we were going to just jump down off the ledge and run across the street. or you could walk down the little sidewalk they built for the bus stop and then walk across the street. We weren't doing that. We were just gonna jump. And he was like, oh, you want me to hold your hand? And I'm like, oh no, I got it. Like, you could, in my head, I'm like, you can do it, I can do it, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm like, no, I got it. So I jump down and, you know, he jumps down, we run across the street. And then we walk up and, you know, get to the next bus stop. And then he kept like complaining kind of the cold. And I'm like, dude, you're from Chicago. Like, isn't it cold there? Aren't you like the Windy City or whatever? And he's like, yeah. He was like, and I was thinking like before I came, if I should bring my long johns or he either said long johns or cuddle duds. And I just bust out laughing. I'm like, I cannot believe you just said, like I said, long johns or cuddle duds. Like, who says that? You're the only man I have ever met that has said anything about some long johns. I said, I appreciate that, but I appreciate your honesty. And you know, you're standing in your truth. And he was like, what's embarrassing about that? Shoot, he's like, my mom had me wear them since I was a kid, and I still wear them. Like, I still buy myself those, you know, them because they keep me warm or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, they do. But anyway, the next bus is coming, and again, he stands to the side, and he lets me on. And then by this time, we're sitting on the bus, headed back towards his job and to my vehicle. He's like, are your hands cold? And I'm like, yeah, they are kind of cold. But then he reaches for my hands. Like, he touches my hands. And I'm like, yeah, they are cold. I'm like, yours cold too. So anyway, we get to the next stop. And again, we're at this predicament about the ledge. And he's still holding my food, by the way. During all of this, he's still holding my food. So we get to the ledge. And he asks me again, do you want me to hold your hand? This time, again, I get out of my way and let this man be the man that he is. And I say, yeah, you hold my hand. So he held my hand and we jumped off the ledge together. Yes, we jumped off the ledge together, and he walks me to my truck, and I told him I had a really, really, really great time. Like, it was so fun. Like, these hands, these beautiful, beautiful, these hands didn't touch not one door. I didn't touch not one door. Any door we went into, he opened. Any door we went out of, he opened. I did not touch not one door. The only door I touched was my car door. That was it. Every door, he had it. And I absolutely loved that. And again, he was literally leaving the next day. It was just an experience. You know, the conversations, the vibes. And I guess just to wrap everything up in this beautiful, beautiful bow, we're going to go to this a little bit more detail. To put everything together in the perspective for those who are contemplating doing online dating, give it a try. Yes, it is scary. Yes, it's the unknown, but at the same time, it's experience. You meet a whole bunch of people. I'm not saying the first date or even the third date is going to be the one, your husband or your wife, like whatever, you know. It's just go out and experience things. You notice something that somebody does that you've never experienced before, and if you are one of those people that create lists of like the ideal person you want in your life, you're going to keep adding, because you're going to have different experiences and be like, wow, I didn't even know that I would love that, but I absolutely love that he or she does this, or for a person to do this or that for me. You know, you just never know. And this whole idea about, oh my God, like cheap dating, oh my God, I don't know. It just depends on where you are mentally when it comes to dating. Because like the first date story I gave you, it's not on the bottom because he didn't pay anything. But that compared to the other stories, which, yeah, drop in the comments like which dating story was your favorite. But it all comes down to what you want. And it's about who you're with, who you vibe with, the experience. Because you could go you could go to a 5-star restaurant and the company is straight trash. Who cares if you're at a 5-star restaurant eating freaking lobster and steak, filet mignon, or caviar, and you wish you was at home, or you just like, I wish I wasn't here right now, you know? And who wants that? And I think it's really important, like I said before, like, it's not about how much the date is. It's just the experience. Really immerse yourself. Experience this person. Now, when it comes to, you know, dating diets, I'm on a dating diet right now. A dating diet is like you date, you go on dates, you socialize, you do all the rigmarole, and then you're like, I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. And I coined that term from my cousin because she told me, she said, Lena, you always keep doing these dating diets. I'm like, what the heck is a dating diet? Like, you start it and then you stop. I was like, oh, yeah. Because you get tired. You get tired. At least me. I get tired. I get drained. I don't want to do it anymore. I just don't. And I take that time to reflect. I reflect on all the dates that I have had. Were they good? What came out of it? What did I learn from it? What did I take out of it? Because those are still experiences, whether you end up dating them exclusively or not. You know, they're all experiences. You take something from each one. I seriously have taken something from each and every date. And when I talk about the response from a YouTuber, her name is Stefco. I love her story time stories. I love her content just in general. One of her videos, she was talking about womb lands. If I can post that video, specific video that I'm referencing down below, I will stick it in the description box below. She was talking about consciousness, different states of consciousness, whether it's relative or if it is collective conscious. So collective conscious is something that we all can agree on, something that is truth. So on a bright, clear day, the sky is blue. That's collective, we all agree. Relative is more person to person. It is like how you perceive, or as she was saying, perceive ideas and values and beliefs, and that's based on person to person. So me going on those dates, you know, even if it was good, what I felt from that person will not or won't be the same way that they feel about me. If they're not the one, then of course that's how it's going to be. But you know, we all hope that you find that person where you're both collective, the truth of, I felt that I have feelings for you and you have feelings for me, blah 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 blah. But yeah, so like the last date, the fourth one, even though it was a great date, I felt like, wow, I would love to do this again. Sometimes people are just wanting just the company, not really wanting to like date exclusively or dating with purpose, with marriage, or they just want to vibe out or whatever. Also, some people do it because they want something out of it, you know. I remember Stefco had mentioned this TikTok video about this girl where, you know, constantly the narrative will be like, well, women pick better men. I take the dates as they are. I take it for the experience, and communication is key, okay? Because I'm definitely not out here in these streets thinking like,
Shout out to you, Miss Monet. Okay. All right.
You see what he did there?
What I do?
He was trying to fuck. Miss Monet! Gong gong.
yeah, I'm not on these streets like that. Live your life, do you, and I hope you got something out of the stories. I hope you got out of it maybe some great dating ideas on what to do that's fun. I hope you got out of this, if you've never done online dating, just give it a try. But again, thank you guys. I am glad you enjoyed this video. Thank you. I know this video is super duper long. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this type of video. Join the Lena gang. Hit that subscriber button. I will see you guys next time. Asante sana. Peace, YouTube.